Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to look at some cards that have these really beautiful lacy suspended patterns. And I'm doing this with some really intricate dies, and there are so many of these available from Pinkfresh Studio. I'm going to be using a few of them today, but I wanted to give you some other options as well. So I'm just going to run you through a few of the dies that would work really well that are from Pinkfresh Studio. First of all, there's the Modern Mandala, and this one has kind of a circular pattern, so it would maybe work best in a circular window. Then there's the Hello with a Bouquet. I'm going to be using this one today. And you'll notice that all of these dies are really intricate and have a lot of open area. They create a very lacy or almost laser cut feel. This is the Floral background die, and it once again has all those really beautiful geometric patterns, really intricate and lacy. This is the Leaf background die, and I'll be using that in one of my cards for today. Next up, I have the Fancy Floral 2 die here, and this has a lot of beautiful flowers and leaves. And finally, I have the Folklore die. Now, this is one of the newer releases from Pinkfresh Studio, and I love this so much. Now, we're going to get started by doing our die cutting first. And because these are such large, intricate dies, I am going to be using a metal shim in my cutting sandwich. So I'm using my Gemini Junior to do my die cutting today. You can use whatever die cut machine that you have, but I would recommend including a metal shim in your sandwich. That's going to help you get a nice clean cut on these intricate images. And I'm using kind of a textured cardstock today. It's in a coral color. I wanted to use this coral color because it is Pantone's color of the year for 2019. It's called Living Coral. This one might be a little more pink than Pantone's actual color, but nevertheless, I wanted to use a coral. So here we go. And you can see that beautiful intricate pattern that I'm left with when I pop out all those negative portions of that die cut. Next up, I die cut the Hello with a Bouquet, and I absolutely love this die cut. It is so beautiful. And finally, the Leaf background. And these are the three that I'm going to be using today to create my cards. Now, next up, I want to create a window on my cards and in the front panel of my cards. So I've grabbed some just basic shape dies. I have a heart and a rectangle here, and I'm kind of lining up those dies to make sure that the patterns that I have are going to kind of fit into those openings. So I have some craft cardstock here. I'm cutting one piece to 4 1/4 by 11 to create my card base. And then I'm cutting a couple of card fronts to measure about 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. So just a 1/4 inch smaller than that A2 size card base. Now I can take my 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece and score that at 5 1/2 inches to create my top folding A2 size card base. And I like to use a scoring board and a Teflon bone folder to get a nice crease in the top of my cards. Now for this one, I'm going to create a rectangle window. So I'm taking my rectangle die and I'm lining it up in the center panel on the front panel. Then I'm going to take this panel and I'm going to line it up on the center of my card base. And I'm going to keep all of that in place with some delicate surface painter's tape. And I'm going to run this with both layers through my die cut machine at the same time. And that's going to create a window in both my card base and the front panel of my card. And I'll be able to suspend these lace-like panels between these two pieces here. Now I'm being very delicate when I remove this painter's tape on this craft cardstock because it has a little more like tooth and texture than some of the other cardstocks that I use, and that painter's tape tends to want to stick better to it, so sometimes it can pull it up, so just be careful, and you can deactivate it a little bit on the back of your hand before you put it on your cardstock. Now I'm going to repeat this same process, but now I have some white linen cardstock and a heart-shaped die. So I've centered that heart-shaped die on the front panel of my card and then centered that panel on my card base, and I've run these through my die cut machine. And I'm left with 2 pieces with this heart-shaped window cut out of them. Now I'm just going to kind of figure out which kind of lacy piece I want behind each frame and just see how everything lines up. And once I kind of have that figured out, I'm going to go ahead and start the assembly process. So I'm going to take the frame or the front panel of my card that has the window in it. And on the back side, I'm going to use some tape runner adhesive all the way around that. And this is going to adhere that lacy panel to the back side of the frame. So you can see I'm just laying that hello with a bouquet die cut there on my grid mat. This is going to help me get everything straight inside of that window. And I'm going to lay this front panel or this frame over the top of that. And when I have it all lined up, I'm going to press it down. Now, there are a couple of pieces that are kind of hanging out from the side, so I'm just going to take my scissors and trim those down. And now I have the front panel of my card with this kind of lacy die cut suspended on the back of it. Now, to give this a little bit of dimension and kind of help that stand up off the card base, I am going to add some foam adhesive on the back of this all around the back side of that frame. And then I'm going to take this and adhere it to my card base. Now, I originally thought I would use that craft card base, and I didn't really. It got too dark for me. So I just took the white card base with the rectangle window cut out of the front of that, and I substituted that in. So I'm just removing the backer from the foam adhesive here, and then I'll line that up and press it down. And now I have, like I said, that lacy kind of piece suspended between the two. It's really beautiful, and you can see inside to the inner part of the card. So you'll be able to see the message that's written inside. If you want to obscure that a little bit, you could add a layer of vellum behind your panel there, that die cut piece, and that would kind of obscure the greeting or the written message on the inside of the card. But I think this is a really cool effect. Now, to finish off this card, I'm just going to heat emboss this "You Are the Best" sentiment onto some vellum cardstock, and I will have all of the Pinkfresh Studio dies and stamp sets linked in the YouTube description below, so be sure to check that out. And I should have done this before I adhered everything, but I didn't think about it, so I used a little tool to pull up some of that adhesive or loosen it so that I could slide this sentiment strip kind of behind that frame there. And I just finished it off with a little bit of glitter cardstock and some black and white striped pattern paper there on the bottom, and a few of those sequins kind of floating over that die cut shape. Now, there's not a lot of difference between the assembly of the first card and the second card, but I start to get a little bit smarter as I assemble these things. I live and I learn, and I don't always do it right the first time, but usually by the third or fourth time, I've got it down. So I've taken this card panel with the window, the heart-shaped window on the front. I've added some tape runner adhesive around the window on the back side of this panel. And then I've added that geo leaf die cut to the back of that and trimmed off the excess. Now, this time I'm going to add my sentiment strips in before I put the foam adhesive on. That was a little improvement in my assembly here. And you can see I have just embossed a sentiment on that craft cardstock and added a little bit of black and white pattern paper. And I'm going to finish this off with a heat embossed floral image. This is from the Fancy Bloom stamp set. And I used the coordinating dies to cut that out. I embossed it in gold embossing powder on some vellum, and I think it makes for a really beautiful accent. And then I can adhere this entire panel onto the card base using some foam adhesive. And you can see how you can see through the entire front panel into the inside of the die. And I think this is an absolutely beautiful option for Valentine's Day. Now, I'm not going to show you the entire card for the final card, but this one I just wanted to show you that you can use these on a standard card base as well. They don't have to be suspended in these windows. So I'm taking the Folklore die here, and I'm just adding dots of liquid glue all over the back of it. And I'm adhering it to a standard A2 size card base. It's made out of some white linen cardstock. And I'm just kind of lining it up there and pressing that down. And this makes for a really beautiful background as well. And you can see I just finished that off with a die cut sentiment. So here's a look at the 3 cards I made today. The first 2 have those really beautiful suspended lace-like patterns in those windows, and I think it is just such a fun idea. These are a little bit more delicate, so you may want to maybe put them in a padded envelope or add some support if you're sending them through the mail. But I just think it is so much fun and a great way to use these really intricate background dies. As always, I will have links to the featured supplies used in these projects in the description at YouTube, so be sure to check there if you're looking for something in particular. I will also have a link to the coordinating blog post, and over there you can get more still shots and more information, so be sure to check that out as well. Thanks for stopping by today. Thanks for watching. I hope I've inspired you to create some kind of suspended lace-like panels on the fronts of your cards. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of the fabulous paper crafting and card making video tutorials here. I'm so glad you stopped by and spent some time with me today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. If you want to subscribe to my channel, go ahead and click the button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.